Hello, this is John Hoffs. I shall now give you my review after my second viewing of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I saw the movie about 2 weeks ago, so I've had about 2 weeks upon to which reflect upon the movie, which I was and am very excited about as a movie. I remember back in the old days when advertisers would say something like the movie everyone's talking about or the bestseller everybody's talking about. And in a way I would say that this movie fits that slogan, everybody's talking about it. So if you'll forgive me, I will talk about it for a few minutes. It seemed to me that my second viewing, the pleasure level was quite similar to the original viewing. I didn't like it exponentially better. I certainly didn't like it less. But I liked it a lot the first time, so that means I liked it a lot, or more than a lot, the second time. As other people have said, they had a desire to see it again, to be able to take a second look at all the detail that Tarantino adds to his movies, the levels and layers of visual stimuli and music and cinematic technique. And it didn't fail to promise. It didn't fail its promise in those areas. For me, the one part that I seem to least enjoy, I hate to say it, and it's not the movie's fault, it's me, is that I have never been a fan of the Western genre, whether it's movies or TV. I never was a Bonanza watcher or a Gunsmoke watcher, or I did watch a few Riflemen, which I liked. They sort of had a moral. They had a something was different about that show. Father-son relationship, teenage boy, father, single father, teaching him the ways of the world. And I remember my sister and I liked High Chaparral, which was a color western, kind of later in the 60s. I don't remember the star, but I want to say that it was a Latino, somebody like Alejandro. Uh, oh hell, I'm trying to think of the guy that Alejandro Rey. Um, so to the degree that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood dwells or focuses on the production of Western television movies and spaghetti westerns, my interest is not as high as it is in the other parts of the movie. I do admire the acting in these Western sequences. I think it makes the point that the Leonardo DiCaprio character is, in fact, a fine actor and is being cast in things beneath his prodigious talent, which they show kind of an example, a fantasy example of when they integrate him into a clip of playing the Steve McQueen role in The Great Escape. I thought that the Manson girls on the Spawn Ranch was handled very realistically. The fact that they were so certainly members of a cult that they sort of were a team with, I forget which Manson woman was sort of their leader. The girl that played the so-called 18-year-old, I mean, she says she's 18 years old, teeny bopper kind of Manson girl, was really good. I mean, she was only on the screen a few minutes, but you couldn't help but have a great feeling for her. On some level, I wish there had been more of Brad Pitt. The whole gopher, I live in a trailer, used to be a stuntman storyline. I suppose it's realistic, like in a novel. It would be something that would be in a novel, but in this movie, it gives him little to do other than the now iconic, you want to say, for women, scene where he climbs up on Rick Dalton's roof, takes off his shirt, smokes a cigarette and drinks a beer, and fixes the antenna for the television set. But what I find most fascinating about the experience of the movie is that somehow, in my life at least, and I wonder if in yours, it's sort of spilled over into my own reality. Not only has it brought me back in memory to that time when I was 11 and a half years old, but it connects me to the characters. It connects me not only to the time, but probably even more so to the place, because that's where I lived. And I was just, again, it was just random that I happened to be fortunate enough, most would say, living in Southern California during the 60s. So in my projection of my own self onto the movie, I become part of the movie because I was in those locations at those times. And of course, the movie's fiction, but what was being played on KHJ in the car radio was not fiction. The locations were not fiction. The time was not fiction. And on a footnote of personal gratification, when I had seen it the first time and had discovered that Tarantino had used my family friend, the director Dick Wilson of Three in the Attic, in his movie, playing a commercial of it in Brad Pitt's trailer, I hadn't really remembered the second time I had seen a visual reference to Three in the Attic in the movie. So this time I was alert to the scene where it's actually Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio driving the Cadillac straight down Hollywood Boulevard at night. And what I discovered, to my delight, was that Three in the Attic was the marquee at one of the movie theaters on Hollywood Boulevard that was playing the movie, was playing Three in the Attic. And my memory from the first time was that it was just a poster that they drive by. So if I ever meet Tarantino, which I doubt I will, but if I ever do, I would love to ask him what he thinks about Dick Wilson. Because if you listen to my growing up in Hollywood video, you'll see that Dick Wilson, director of Three in the Attic, and now one of the cultural references of Once Upon a Time in America, I'm sorry, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, what he would say about Dick Wilson. So, on that note, I will conclude my review of my second viewing of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.